All right, let me jump in. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Shelly Ann Dunkley. Welcome to the wrap-up of Caribbean Environment Week. Thank you for staying with us this entire week. It has been, I don't even know the words. A lot of information has been exchanged. We have spoken to quite a few people over the week, and we have looked at many topics. We'll run through the recap, but before we do that, we would like to invite our very special guest today. We have the Honorable Minister Pernell Charles Jr. MP with us today. If you could please turn on your mic and your video. There you go. I am. I would also like to invite my co-hosts, Danielle Nemhard. She's from Environmental Solutions Limited. Hello, Danielle.
Hello.
And we also have Ashley Codner. She is our eco coordinator, moderator, all of the above. So thank you for joining us. We're going to run through a few things here before we talk to the minister, but first of all, we want to thank our sponsors, Scotiabank, Coca-Cola, Junk Cayman, and Cayman Business Solutions for joining us as we take bold steps towards a sustainable future. Let us do, something, read the topics that we've spoken about, and then we can talk to the minister so he can get some insight into some of the various areas that we addressed this week. Daniel, let's start with you.
Yes, well, to say it has been an exciting and informative week is the understatement of 2020. And in 2020, I think that says so much. We've had guests from all over the world, panelists from the UK, from Jamaicans here and abroad, Germany, Cayman, Trinidad, St. Lucia. I mean, the list goes on, and it's been really just truly very exciting for me. In terms of takeaways from previous sessions, well, again, so much information that we've had. I think one of the key points that has been raised and that people have come to understand is that climate change is real. It's our new reality. It's happening now, and we can't afford to wait any longer. We're in the last decade for any type of urgent, strategic, effective action in order to secure our sustainable future. And that's really the impetus for this whole entire week. Caribbean islands, we're incredibly vulnerable, as we've seen in our planning sessions and our climate sessions. And so we actually need to come together to punch above our weight, really. We are contending with developing countries that have these incredible economies that push out all kinds of carbon emissions, and we have to ensure that our environment and our ecosystems, people and environments are secure and resilient so that when these events come our way, we are strong and prepared. We've also seen that our youth really have an incredibly strong voice, as the minister would know, as we see that he has met with some this week, and we'll talk about that. Yeah, they have fire, they have energy, honestly, and they understand that, they will have to be the ones to bear a lot of the brunt of what's happening now, and they're taking really strategic action today, and they're very vocal, but they need support. And that we need to have more awareness and sensitization amongst our populations. I mean, our goal in Caribbean Environment Week was really to get people who we don't usually get. I mean, if you want the scientists, yes, we always get them. If you want the environmental advocates, certainly they're always there. But we want to get everybody, as Ambassador Alun said, the taxi driver, the farmer, all walks of life, because really these impacts, they don't discriminate. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everybody's going to feel it. And so we want them to be a part of this. And so sensitization and awareness has to be one of the big things that is incorporated. But it's not all doom and gloom, and we don't want you to feel like it's so overwhelming that you get crippled and panicked and you don't do anything at all. Baby steps, individual action is important, dialogue is important, communication is important, personal action, even if it is just you sharing what you have learned this week with your colleagues or your family or your friends, that is a bold step towards a sustainable future, because you're sensitizing someone who may not have been as informed as they were before. And I guess the other takeaway that I have gotten is that we have to start rethinking our lifestyles. Yes, it's easy to pass the buck to other people to say, oh, the government needs to control this, or, we need this policy to do that. But what are you doing? Are you living a sustainable lifestyle? As our last panelist said in the waste management session, if they offer you the straw, do you have to take it? Do you have to drive to that location? Can you carpool? Can you offer a ride to someone else? So there are teeny tiny little actions that we can all do to recraft our lifestyle for it to be more sustainable. And so, yeah, those are my takeaways. I don't know what you have to say, Shelley.
All right. Well, I thank you for that, Daniel. And those takeaways are very important and thought provoking. But we also spoke with some business persons as well, and we delved into sustainable business strategies. We also looked at sustainable financing. So there is actually a lot happening in the space, and I believe following our chat with the minister, we will also delve into that a bit more. But for the most part, or talk business, spoke to a lot of accountability, whether it be for corporations or private sector, as well as the government. There is accountability that needs to be, stepped up. And we also looked at the fact that our financial institutions do have a keen interest in funding environmentally responsible projects. And, based on the conversations that we had on that day, that is also something I am gearing up for, because I believe our industry or financial sector has a role to play, a huge role to play, in ensuring that whatever projects are now coming to the table are beneficial to us as Jamaicans, us as the Caribbean people, So I'm really looking forward to what they have next. Ashley.
What some of the key takeaways that I observed is that, it's not all doom and gloom. Persons are doing things, investments are being made in sustainable and practical solutions to everyday problems that we're having. And, there is funding that available locally, through various aid projects. And I think something that certainly I didn't really think about before, we got the population thinking, where's our money going? How is our money being invested? Is it being invested in sustainable projects? Is it being invested in projects that, are not environmentally friendly or not environmentally responsible? So we got the populace thinking, where's my money going? Is this sustainable? Am I helping to create a brighter future, or am I helping to create a future that may not be as comfortable as we'd all like? And I think something that came across a lot when we spoke about economic growth is that within the marketplace, consumers, they're demanding more environmentally friendly products and solutions. They say with some of the younger generation that, we do our research. We want to know, where was this product sourced? How was it made? Is it beneficial to the environment? Are these companies producing them in a responsible way? So, I like that push by the consumers to hold corporations accountable. We want responsible products. And, I really hope that we'll have a greater push in the Caribbean for that.
All right. Thank you for that, Ashley and Daniel. So, Minister Charles, once again, welcome to Caribbean Environment Week. And based on all the takeaways that we just gave you right now, we do hope that you were able to, pinpoint some things that you'll be able to utilize during your time in the ministry, and, bring it to our people, our Jamaican people and our Caribbean region. So my first question to you is, how does the mandate of your ministry prepare the island to meet the challenges brought on by climate change?
Let me first use the opportunity to say, just congrats to you all for having such an awesome forum. I think that any opportunity that we have to facilitate interactive and, really substantive dialogue on these critical issues, and to network and to get to know the persons in this sector is important. you created this, and so we need to applaud that and acknowledge the effort that has been put in by all of the stakeholders that have made this possible.
Thank you.
I also believe that based on what I've heard a while ago, you don't really need me. You've done it all. I don't know why you don't need me. But it's important to note that on this critical issue of our environmental protection, there are so many stakeholders that are passionate, that are committed, that are invested. And I want to ensure you that as a minister, as a new minister in this area, I'm taking the time to immerse myself and to learn the science and understand all of the connected issues, and to ensure that we will rise from this with the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment and Climate Change becoming a ministry that appreciates the challenges of the unpredictability of our weather systems and how the more intense weather systems and frequency of the system impacts our environment and our people, and what we can do to ensure that as a commonality along our portfolio areas, you always have sustainable practices as a forefront, as the element. So this ministry is a combination of a lot of critical portfolios. And we intend to make sure that the linkages between those areas make a distinct impression on our behavior and on our action as a people. It's not always going to be easy, as you can see what's happening right now. But I think that the challenges will provide opportunity for the ministry to really distinguish itself in terms of its mandate. And like issues like environment and climate change, we will never be able to do it alone. These are not issues that will be the responsibility of the government. So another big part of what we will have to do is to engage, to be open, to be transparent, and to find as many ways as possible to raise awareness and to raise the priority of these issues across the length and breadth of not just Jamaica, but the world. We intend to not just be local leaders. This morning, I had the opportunity to be on a call with Alok Sharma from the UK, and he and I will very soon lead as co-chairs of the NDC partnership. So Jamaica is going to be and will continue to be a leader globally on these matters. And I'm very pleased to know that I have all of you as a resource and as you know, contributors to the positive advancement of these issues in our country and region.
The
So,
famous
you hearing me?
Zoom challenge. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
Shelley,
So
you're on mute.
Yeah, actually,
So, Minister, given the ravaging effects of climate change, what plans are coming on stream for the more vulnerable in our society? I mean, not just in line with the recent downpours that we've been having, but an overall plan to tackle this issue of climate change that we'll be facing for years to come.
Am I on mute or off? Which one?
You're on
Can
mute.
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
When you speak of vulnerability, you know, the pandemic has been unprecedented in its challenges, but in the last 2 weeks, we would have seen rains that has really exacerbated some of the challenges we face in our country. And all of this arising from, whether you believe in it or not, from climate variability. Science is indisputable. So we have many vulnerable groups, whether it is our youth, our women and our girls, the disabled community, to name a few. And we are focusing in this ministry in defining mechanisms to engage and empower these groups. I've already met with UNICEF to start the discussion on how we're going to make our children become a priority and continue to be a priority in terms of the discussion of advocacy and learning about the impacts of climate change and being guided and empowered on how they can have individual responsibility, being the persons who perhaps contribute the least but will be the most vulnerable. We have had discussions and we'll continue on the development of a tool to support the integration of climate risk analytics in the programming of our infrastructure decision making. And that's very, very important because that tool, which is coming out of the Coalition of Climate Resilient Initiatives, will give access to a practical opportunity for us to adjust how we make decisions based on vulnerability, based on the economic and social value at risk in various times. And so it will take into consideration variables that will appreciate the vulnerability of different sectors. There are other things that we are doing in terms of partnering with other ministries to advance projects that will raise awareness and focus our investment on putting in place sustainable activities. For instance, our farmers, another group that you could also define as vulnerable. And of course, if you note the large amount of the large cost that's arising from the devastation which flows from the recent weather events to our agricultural sector, then that establishes a firm reason why we have to focus in on some of those areas. So we're doing a lot of things. There's much more that we have to do. We have to make sure that we are defining our policies and defining our legislation with resilience at the forefront. And we have to make sure that we at the ministry, at Murak here, we must have integrated in all other ministries, departments, and agencies, the same level of understanding for resilience and sustainability to be at the forefront of their contemplation when designing policies, laws, and when operating, whether it is infrastructure development or tourism, education, health, all of these things are connected to our resilience.
Beautiful. Thank you for that, Minister.
Minister, if I could just interject and say one thing, I'm really happy to hear all of what you've just outlined, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say that. I think you mentioned data and data collection as a part of one of your tools to be incorporated in the decision-making process. But climate change is really now kind of a climate justice issue, as we're talking about vulnerable groups. I think as much as we talk about carbon emissions and 1.5 to stay alive, it's equally important to bring it down to the level of the actual people, like you said, the farmer and others who are going to be impacted. And so I would say in your data collection initiatives, as you're building these networks, it's important to get the disaggregated data of who is actually feeling these impacts: age, gender, occupation, what access they have to resources, because without this level of assessment and analysis, it's just going to be this broad brush approach, right, that really won't get to the people. So I commend the efforts, and I'm really heartened to hear it. I know the chat is blowing up with equal messages, but I just wanted to say that, right, because it's something that means a lot to me.
Completely agreed, man. Completely agreed. And we have to advance partnerships that respect that notion. The difficulty for us as a country like Jamaica is going to be pushing this agenda to action and keeping it as a priority for, as you said, for the people on the ground, those persons who have to wake up and contend with questions like, what to eat, go to school, and then you're asking them to consider environmental issues. So that's what people think, but we have to make sure that we show that environmental issues impact what you eat and whether you can go to school. And so that's our responsibility now, to make that connection, and to utilize empirical data, so data information on the climate, analyzing it and pushing that out in a way that's palatable, that makes sense to people in a practical way.
Yeah.
And Minister, I liked what you said about integration. We can't work in a vacuum. The various ministries need to communicate with each other, because really climate change, the environment, it impacts everything that we do. I think that came out a lot in the discussions this week. It impacts finance, it impacts how we build. So I like that you've hinted that, the ministries are going to, try to work together to combat the issues that we're having, because everything is interrelated and we really can't be working in a vacuum. So I'm looking forward to that collaborative effort that you alluded to earlier.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
I say it's going to be the breaking down of barriers, because the reality is we are operating in a system that is traditionally obstructive. We're operating in a system that is almost so rigid that it can be a shackle to itself. So to find the balance between maintaining transparency and accountability and driving productivity on these issues is going to be an enormous task, but it's something which we must do if we are going to develop the sustainable practices and move our country to a place where we plan 100 years, 200 years down the line. And that's really, I think, one of the most important aspects of the synergy that is the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change.
Yes. You mentioned partnerships earlier, and for those that don't know, the minister actually met with quite a few of the youth leaders earlier this week. What was the motivation for meeting with the youth leaders, and do you have any plans to meet with any others?
Well, in this effort, we can't leave anybody behind. And so you have to identify the soldiers who will be equipped with the energy and the ammunition to fight this battle. Our young people are passionate, they are energetic, they are already fueled and ready to take me on, I must say, take on the issues, and we need. We need persons who will continue to challenge the decisions that are made so that we can make the best decisions. We need persons that will champion the causes. And for me, I'm just trying to see if I can present a platform to bring persons to the table. Not so long ago, and I reaffirm, not so long ago, I was a young leader trying to get at the table. And so I understand how it feels to see from a distance the decision makers and want to have an opportunity to contribute, to adjust, to impact how they think and what they do. So I challenge myself always to provide those opportunities to persons for them to come to the table. One, so that they can be confronted with the challenge and understand all of the moving variables that have to be contended with in making a decision. And two, so that you are generating not only the interest, but you're edifying a generation that will be the leaders very soon, and are already leaders in their right, but will be the policy makers very soon.
Yeah, and actually, I was just going to say, to that point, in terms of they are the future. Not trying to sound cliche or anything, but you know, decisions that are made today impact their future, which is why I believe their voice is so important. We should listen to what they're saying, but I agree completely with what you're saying in terms of they need to understand the moving parts. You know, they might see what is happening or a decision that is made, and then they're just like, well, this is going to impact me. However, what is currently happening, you know, not just in, you know, call it your constituency, but nationally, you know, so there's a bigger picture that they also need to see. So kudos to you. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for bringing them to the table.
We have to continue to do so. I mean, this is just one opportunity that's being created, but I want to utilize technology. I said to my team that the website for the ministry needs to be a pioneering website where people can be on it, interacting, learning information, getting videos. And we need to use the virtual platforms. I mean,
Yes.
what you're doing right now is a prime example of, extending opportunity for persons to listen and to have their own opinions and their voice articulated to the world. I mean, this will be recorded, and several other persons will be able to have this information throughout time. And so we don't have any excuses to be obstructive in terms of the engagement. And engagement is one of the primary responsibilities of the ministry. So we'll continue to do so. We'll continue to adjust our policies. We're working or have worked through the support of the government of Canada through their Impact Justice Project to update our country's climate change policy framework. And that's something which we will be advancing so that it aligns accurately with the provisions of the Paris Agreement. And we have a number of other projects. You've heard of the 3 Million Trees Project, with that initiative, which also is connected to a lot of issues. And we want to get young people involved, get them involved, come in, jump in, plant as many trees, give us your opinion. You have to be ambassadors in this initiative.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much, Minister. Again, really kind of encouraged by what you're saying. And we understand that, you know, the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change, it has now been given the moniker of the Super Ministry. Some may see all these different components as, you know, competing interests. Others may see it as a bit of an opportunity, especially because, again, you know, we're working towards integration and not working in silos. And we do have quite a bit of environmental and social and economic issues that we need to address as a nation. You delved into it a little just now in terms of some of your actions and strategies that you're looking at. But I want to dig a bit further. If you can kind of walk us through, you know, your pathways or your solutions for ensuring sustainability, not just for people and jobs and livelihoods, but for the environment, because they are related, given these competing aspects of your current portfolio.
So I tell you this, you know, one of the things you have to ask yourself when you serve as a minister is, how will you make greatest impact? Will it be defining and executing a project that is going to engage all of the country, or is it the policy and legislation? For me, I think you have to, we will have to advance all things, but a focus must be on defining policies in Jamaica that impact how everybody operates moving forward. So we are going to be commencing a task force, a multi-stakeholder task force, to help with pulling all of those moving parts together so that, as you said, creating the pathway to sustainability will start by understanding the parameters that impact your ability to have sustainable practices in your country. What are the different building codes? What are the different legislation that mandates or defines a way to sustainability? What are the policies of the government in all different sectors that encourages sustainability? What about the material we're using to build? What about the practices, for corporate Jamaica? Do we have any indices that are encouraging persons to introduce sustainable practices in their business, not just individuals? What about us as a government? I've always wondered, when I treated with water issues, I started a program called Wiki, Water IQ Initiative. And we went out to schools, primary and prep schools, and spoke to the kids. I'm telling you, they are smarter than us. They together, without a doubt, they crafted songs that were hits in teaching me why we should conserve water. And they inspired me then to start the designing of an index, an audit almost, that should encourage corporate Jamaica to introduce the kind of mechanisms and procedures in their business, for people to be able to know, let me choose this company over this company because they do this. So we're going to implement the same approach with Murek, ensuring that the pathway to sustainability is better and more effective policies, impactful legislation, and not just legislation for today. Legislation must continuously be amended as the country grows.
Yes.
And the kind of projects that we will be able to monitor, sorry about that, monitor, and see tangible achievements. So we'll be able to implement monitoring and evaluation elements into our projects to ensure at the end that the outcome is achieved, which must include sustainable practices.
Wow, love that. Thank you. Thank you, Minister. The fact that, we want to talk to our business people as well. I fell into environment in terms of activism. I fell into it. I have a story, but I won't bring it up here. But my degree is actually in accounting. So I've always tried to figure out, what's the balance. I love my environment. We need our environment for business, for manufacturing. But at the same time, you have to be able to create a balance. So I would love to see more being done within, the business industries so that we're able to create that balance.
And it came up in our discussions this week where they said sustainable development is actually a redundant phrase. It can't be development if it's not sustained. So, I really hope that the business sector and the environmental professionals, they can come together to help establish that balance, because that is really the only way that we can move forward with sustainable development, that in the long run can benefit, our country, the Caribbean, and, raise a standard of living that we all would like to enjoy.
We all have a responsibility. And I like what you said about it can't be development if it's not sustainable. The fact is, we have spent so much money constructing edifices that have really emerged as waste. We have spent so much money putting in place infrastructural development that just didn't contemplate the level of population increase, for instance. And also a lot of the things that we are also blaming on infrastructure is not really just infrastructure issues. The issues in terms of how we maintain and how we adapt and how we, over time, adjust our infrastructure to align with the evolution of our society. So there are several moving parts, several variables that all boil down to you. What do you do in your home? And what do you do in your community? And how are you responsible for the decisions you make? Because all of us, if we take individual responsibility, whether we are ministers of government, whether we are business entrepreneurs, or whether we are students, if we take individual responsibility for learning and understanding it, then we will be able to have an impact, not only in our community, but in whatever area that we are existing and operating. Whatever our business is, whatever our school is, whatever our church is, we'll be able to make a positive impact as it relates to sustainable development. It can't just be a catchphrase. And that's the difficulty for me. I've heard the word sustainable development has to be understood. And there are several things that frustrate me, which I believe will cause me to be able to more, I don't want to say aggressively, but I'm sure will compel me to have to make some change. I mean, we have to deal with issues like our garbage. When you look on the rains and look in the gullies and see the amount of plastic bottles, um, yes, so we have issues in terms of infrastructure, but those plastic bottles got there somehow. So we are advancing with private sector now through Recycling Partners of Jamaica, the very important initiative of the Deposit Refund Scheme. And I'm meeting with my team next week to advance the second phase of the plastic ban as well. So we deal with those issues, because those issues are going to be critical in terms of what you said, in terms of the pathway to sustainability. That pathway to sustainability will require us to create the parameters that will allow for the sustainable development to emerge. And it's a lot of moving parts, but I'm welcoming and look forward to the challenge. And I know that we have a very good team at the ministry, and we are going to develop even stronger relationships with the private sector, students, schools, corporate Jamaica, NGOs. We welcome your criticism. We welcome your partnership as we move together to advance Jamaica's and the Caribbean's agenda.
Really, again, I am encouraged by what you're saying, Minister, and it's a great segue into our next question for you, which, again, not to prompt you, but it might be a little difficult to answer, but we are here to ask the difficult questions, right? So in terms of evolving and, landscapes change, cities change, the climate changes, every year, we kind of have this repeating headline, as our panelists said in our session yesterday on planning for an uncertain future. We have Jamaica flood out, then we have a drought now for 3 months, then we have floods again, and then we have drought again. And every year there's this kind of surprise or exasperation from the nation around these kind of repetitive cyclical issues. Now, I mean, the public has posed a lot of solutions, private sector, public sector, entrepreneurs, etc. But I'm curious to know from you and your ministry, what kind of innovation are you bringing to the portfolio? And I mean innovation as we can pull from other places, it's a whole new idea, doesn't matter. But what's the innovation that your portfolio will bring to rework and reinvigorate some of these old aging infrastructure, communities in need of renewal, to kind of mitigate these, again, cyclical issues with regards to flooding and droughts?
So whether flooding, drought, or other issues, we have more than 80 projects now out of the climate change division that are focused on community sustainable development. Some of them focus on water adaptation and the implementation of rainwater harvesting mechanisms across schools and communities. Some focused on the introduction of early warning systems that will allow us to be able to prepare for the weather and climatic variability, and weather systems that arise from that. And several other projects that will introduce innovation. Now, what's important in what you said is the impact of it. How do we ensure that all of these projects end up changing our behavior as a country and moving to an outcome that is sustainable? I go back to what I said first. I think that we will have to start defining policies, not just projects, policies that demand and mandate sustainability. That will be the way to have long lasting introduction of sustainable practices in our country. And we will also have to start developing the type of opportunities, whether it is through partnership with our other global partners or opportunities in linkages with corporate Jamaica, to have our own, start to be innovators and inventors and to facilitate that. And I know that the PPCR project has put some funding towards that, but I'm hoping that we can generate more financing to further encourage persons in rural Jamaica, persons across the Caribbean, to start to examine our vulnerabilities, to examine the issues, whether it is flooding or drought, and you start to define innovative techniques that could be implemented, whether it is a change in the agricultural procedures that you use and the type of equipment, or simply introducing small waste to energy systems in communities. The innovation is there. The innovation is there. Our responsibility now will be to drive the process of ensuring that it moves from just having a task force or a committee to actually getting done. And it's going to be, as I said, it's an enormous task because a lot of these things don't rest in the Ministry of Housing, Urban Renewal, Environment, and Climate Change. So I know that in large part, we will become a ministry that defines policies, executes the procedure, but we're going to have to challenge other ministries. And we may have to grapple at times with other ministries to get it done. But then that's democracy, and that's the beauty of our system. We should have a chance to really, push each other to be better.
Thank you for that, Minister. Our chat is blowing up, and I'd like to take a question from our audience. They're asking, how will you work to strengthen enforcement of our environmental laws and regulations? And have you considered partnership or training of law enforcement officers in environmental law?
Well, that's a good question. I actually do think that there has been some training before of select officers as it relates to environmental issues. I don't know if it's specific to environmental law, but that's a very important aspect of the enforcement, whether it is the officers or the relevant person. We have to ensure that they do have the specific knowledge and capacity to execute their responsibilities. A lot of the enforcement rests in agencies like NEPA, which doesn't fall under our ministry, but which we work with and will have to have some alignment with in terms of the policies that we design and how those policies are implemented and enforced. So we are actually moving towards having some meetings within the next month to look at gaps, to look at any loopholes, to have a quick audit of the current situation as it relates to enforcement so that we can properly define what the issues are that need to be addressed with urgency. I don't want to, I try not to speak from a place of emotion. And so it is important for me to really get the accurate data from the technocrats before I make a decision as a minister. I don't want to just get up and say, this is how I feel. So I've asked for that discussion to begin, and we will move quickly to have it. And then we will also be working with some of our international partners. I met recently with the EU ambassador, and she's very, very, very eager to work with Jamaica in defining, in mapping, in creating the framework for all of what you spoke about a while ago in terms of advancing enforcement, advancing awareness, and really creating partnerships. They have some big projects that they will be implementing here relating particularly to the energy sector and the redefining of our energy sector in terms of renewables and other innovation. And so we will take the role of working with them and ensuring that the projects are impactful and sustainable. And I think that's a big part of achieving what you said in terms of enforcement as well, because it will come from educating the relevant authorities and holding them accountable. We must be held accountable. We will not always agree, but there must be platform for us to hold each other accountable. And that's what we intend to do.
Thank you for that, Minister. All right, so we are coming close to the hour, and we would like to thank the Minister for being with us for this segment. The ladies are actually going to be doing a wrap up of the entire week pretty soon. But to close out our conversation, Minister, I would love for you to just give us, in as brief a way as possible in terms of what gains do you hope to see within your ministry at the end of your term? I know that's a heavy question because there's so much that your ministry covers, but what would you like to see at the end?
I'm always taken back to those persons who have the greatest vulnerabilities. Those groups and those children and persons in the most challenging economic situations who probably contribute the least and probably are the most misunderstood and who responsibility for. I think that if we are able at the end of this to have defined policies that consider them and consider the commercial interest and consider global interest and really find that pathway to sustainability, as we said, then we would have achieved. I think the policies and the legislation will be the most lasting in terms of impact, coupled with projects that have the common theme of really defining in an active way, moving from agenda to action in making Jamaica a pioneer and a prime example of a country that uses the opportunity in its development to develop in a sustainable way. We have a lot of natural resources. We have the brilliant people, and we have to find a way to connect all of those dots in achieving our outcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Minister. I think we could go on and on. I haven't even touched on the recycling topic with you and the deposit refund and waste to energy, which you touched on. Those are hot topics for me. Yeah, but I won't. I think we'll have to have another session for that conversation. But thank you so much, Minister. Ladies, do we have any more questions for the Minister? All right. Thank you so much, Minister. Any last words for our viewers?
I just encourage everyone to get involved, in your own way, in your own home, in your own community. Make a difference. Stand up for what you believe. Go out and get information. Don't wait on anybody to tell you what it means. Google it, learn about it, start a group. Go out and clean up a beach. Help
or follow Live Echo. Follow Live Echo as well.
Follow Live Echo.
And ESL.
And ESL.
And all of the groups. But importantly, the last message is get involved in moving from agenda to action.
Yeah. Because each of us play a part, for sure. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Minister.
All the best to you all. You're doing a fabulous job. Continue to do good work. And I look forward to the next opportunity to engage you and to engage all of your viewers.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Minister.
All the best.
Thank you. All right, so we are actually going to have Daniel and Ashley take over now. They are going to be doing the wrap up for the week. Thank you, ladies.
We had
Actually.
a fabulous week. Thank you, Shelley. Daniel, I just want to run a quick poll for our viewers to see, which 3 sessions did they enjoy the most? We had so many this week that they were so engaging. We got so many brilliant nuggets. So, we had youth in action, climate change or new reality, financing a sustainable future, achieving economic growth with sustainable development, planning for an uncertain future, and lastly, this morning, waste management strategies in the Caribbean. Which 3 sessions did you guys enjoy the most? Daniel, which one was your favorite?
I was going to say, I always feel like it's so unfair that the panelists don't get to participate in the polls. And I wouldn't be able to choose one, to be honest. I thought they were all just so illuminating and our panelists and our moderators were just top notch.
And we had panelists from all over, from Barbados, from St. Lucia, from the UK, from Germany, from Jamaica, bringing such a wealth of knowledge. We're in the environmental field, but I'm sure you learned something new this week.
Yes, I actually did learn a lot new, especially from the waste management perspective. I didn't actually realize that in the Caribbean, we were doing so much and there was so much action around managing waste. There was so much innovation and entrepreneurship. It was really good to see. I'm happy to see that's happening.
So the results are in, and the top 3 sessions: climate change or new reality, planning for an uncertain future, and waste management strategies in the Caribbean. And I mean, the sessions were just so powerful. So you alluded earlier that, action is being taken in the youth in action discussion. We heard from a Jamaican group, we heard from a Caymanian group, what the youth in this country are doing. I mean, the Caymanian group stopped the construction of a pier because they realized the damage that it would have done to their environment. And to think these are young people, 16, 17, taking a stance, understanding the problem and, demanding the right move from their government. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that kind of youth action, as I said earlier, just becoming much more prominent. I mean, I commend them for their bravery, really. It is a little unfortunate that they have to be fighting in this way to kind of preserve or at least just, fight for the environment, because they understand these interlinkages between the environment and having a sustainable future. But it's really inspiring to see that they not only use science, but they use advocacy and sensitization to just build this network to push back against, things that they feel are unjust. And it really is unjust. But I was really happy to see that.
And with climate change or new reality, when people hear climate change, I think it's something down the road, 10 years from now, 5 years from now. No, it really is our new reality. And we spoke to the experts, various scientists in their field. And one thing that really touched me was there's still hope. We can do something. It's not all doom and gloom. I like what Dr. Kevon Riney had said, that climate change is a lifestyle disease. We need to treat it as a lifestyle disease. We need to take action.
Yeah. I mean, again, James Ellsmore said, it's not really the climate change, it's a climate disruption.
Yes.
Life is no longer going to continue. Things have changed. And, it's a disruption. But with any disruption, if you take strategic, effective action, if you involve your stakeholders, if you believe in the science or trust in the science, if you have the data, if you leverage innovation, if you have strong policies and legislation, and a government that is willing to take this bold action and form partnerships with your private sector, as well as, educational institutions and think tanks, we can manage this disruption. It's not it's not too much.
It's not the end of the world.
I mean, no, it's not.
And financing for a sustainable future. I was blown away about, with what some of our financial institutions are doing. Climate bonds, green bonds, I'd never heard of that before. And, so many of our financial institutions are making it easier for persons to adapt to this new normal that we have to deal with. So, offering various loans to help individuals and larger corporations become more environmentally friendly, more environmentally responsible, so things are being done. And I found that to be very encouraging. Sometimes it's not publicized as much as it should, but, other industries are taking the environment into account, and that's very encouraging.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning of that session, the financial sector has this immense power really to form our future, to make the landscape either one that is facilitating the change that we need and the innovation that we need by what they choose to invest in and who they choose to give financing to. And so, yes, I was encouraged to see that climate change and hazards are on the table at these financial institutions. It's not in a document somewhere on a shelf. It is things, they're actively rolling out projects across the landscape of their loan portfolio, from the smallest borrower to large scale entities, So yes, and even in terms of what they choose to invest in for people's pension, or when you put your money in a savings account, people are now divesting from fossil fuels again, because we're again changing the landscape of what a sustainable future looks like.
And in the session Achieving Economic Growth and Sustainable Development, we spoke to persons in the industry, and what I got from that is that the consumers want environmentally responsible products. They're pushing for that change in the Caribbean, globally, and the producers are listening. I like that. And seeing that they're coming on board and listening to the populace, to me, I thought that was excellent. Things will take time, and we understand that, but we're taking steps in the right direction.
Absolutely. And again, it's a consumer-driven landscape. And so once you as a consumer demand change, manufacturers will have no choice.
Right. It's almost 2:00, so we do need to wrap up quickly. But, we had 2 more amazing sessions, planning for an uncertain future, where, we got some brilliant nuggets about how we need to think of, planning from a holistic perspective, and not just planning for the future, but planning for now. And with waste management in the Caribbean, we learned about what we're doing in our sister islands, so we can learn from each other, and the various strategies that are being employed and that are working. So I'd encourage anyone, if you missed any of the sessions, don't fret. They're on Live Echo's YouTube page, so you can go back, have a look through it, comment, and we'll answer any questions as best as we can following the discussion. But Daniel, what's your key message that you'd like our audience to take away from the entire week? I know that's a hard question, but what's your key message?
It's easier than you think. I think action is not this far away kind of obscure thing. It's a personal thing. So we all have the power and autonomy to take action, because our future is our own. And so whether that action is individual or collective, whether it's from the government or from a private sector, action is action. And so, do some self-reflection as an individual, but find those pathways where you can take action. It's not too late.
And I'll piggyback on yours. For me, it's accountability. You need to be accountable for yourself. You need to hold your governments and various corporations accountable. And we need to plan not just for the future, but for the present. That was my takeaway. And I really like that, the Caribbean, we've acknowledged the situation that we're in, and we're taking strides. We've lit that fire to start the discussion, and I'm sure we've gotten a lot of persons thinking, okay, what can they do next? how can I make Jamaica a better place to live, St. Lucia, Trinidad. It was really an enlightening week. And, a big thank you to all of our panelists. Thank you to our participants who joined in on the sessions. You are very interactive. And a huge, huge, huge thank you to all of our sponsors, Scotiabank, Junk Cayman, Coca-Cola, and Cayman Business Solutions.
Thank you, Ashley. I just want to say on behalf of Environmental Solutions that we were really and truly just so excited to be a part of this week. We have learned so much, and we've gotten an opportunity to talk a bit about what we do as well. And so again, just thank you.
Thank you. Working with your team was an absolute pleasure. I'm sure Shelley shares my sentiment, and it just shows what partnerships can do. So thank you so much for partnering with us, and everyone, again, thank you for tuning in. And look out next year for us.